Trigger warning. This video contains references to themes of suicide, domestic violence and addiction, which some individuals may find distressing. New Zealand sprinter Symone Tafuna'i placed third at the Nationals in the female 100 metres and is a member of the New Zealand women's relay team. She is currently working at RNZ as a sports reporter, where she aims to show and encourage other fellow young Samoan and Pacific Islanders to follow their dreams. Symone is very open about her mental health journey and hopes to use her platform to normalise the struggles athletes and non-athletes experience to achieve their own success. Symmy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and saying yes. I mean, although me and you have worked for and do work for, media organisations, we're just in a garage in a podcast studio and you said yes, and I just want to thank you firstly. Can you please just talk about the people who helped you be here today as an acknowledgement for family before we start?
First of all, I just wanted to give a big shout out to my mom, my dad, and my sister. They were the core people that supported me and helped me a lot during my mental health journey, to the point where they went to their own counselling and did their own research about anxiety and depression to ensure that I'm still here today. So,
wow, it's beautiful. How do you describe what you do? Like, you've done a lot, and you're 25? And
just turned 25, yeah.
There's so much to come, but how do you describe the work you do?
I do a bit of sprinting. I do a bit of track, yeah. I'm in my second year of journalism. I don't know. I don't think I do a lot. I think it's just normal what I do. I'm just like a regular girl, just trying to be happy in life with the things that I do, which is journalism and sprinting.
So there's a kind of like something interesting about there's something physical, and something mental. Yeah,
well, they both cross over. I mean, sports has been my world since I was such a young girl, and to be able to have the opportunity to do that as a job in my journalism career I'm very grateful, because when I get to interview the athletes, I get to talk to them as one of them, because I am an athlete myself. So it's really interesting and very honourable knowing that I get to see the side that maybe other people don't get to see, because they trust me knowing that I am one of them.
How young were you when you got into sprinting? I read somewhere like 7 or 3?
3, yeah.
Wow. So you've been racing since day dot?
Yeah, well, because I still live in Avondale, and behind our house is the Avondale Athletics Club. So my mum put my sister and I into the Avondale Athletics Club, and then I was just an observer. I had no idea what I was doing, but apparently I told my mum I wanted to copy my sister, so she just chucked me in, and then I've just been doing it since I was a little baby actually. Yeah.
A lot of people haven't been sprinting since they were like 3. Do you think there's a tie-in to kind of measuring yourself for time, pressure around trying to be better? When I was 3, it was just watch movies and eat food, and that's haunted me in other ways.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever trying to improve, milliseconds as opposed to maybe what it was like for you.
I think it wasn't just on track. I think it was just in life. I think it's very common for, growing up through adolescence and adulthood, you always compare yourself to your peers around you. You always just sometimes you don't understand why they may be doing better than you are. And I think that that kind of comparingness still is in my life, but that's what they call people pleasing. Well, that's what my therapist told me. But I've always compared and measured my life in seconds. I would say my life is like a 100-meter track. You start and then sometimes you don't make it to the finish line because you might get injured or maybe something else happened in your life. But yeah, I do totally agree with you. And it's still a journey. Yeah.
This is going to sound cheesy and we can cut this out. But
cut it, no.
There's that line in Fast and the Furious, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. This is Vin Diesel in his epic voice.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Nothing else matters. For those 10 seconds or less, I'm free.
And I wonder for how long does it take you to do
Oh, it's it's a bit longer than 2 seconds.
But what are you thinking? Are you free in those moments?
I don't think. It's such a fast race that I have no time to think. And by the time I cross the line, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know what I did. But it is very liberating knowing that I don't have to think because I'm such an overthinker.
Yeah.
So then when I have small moments where I don't have to think in life, I'm just like, yeah, it's very liberating.
But I guess that's a metaphor for life, that you were doing all this training, all this thinking, so for just above 10 seconds, you didn't have to think, but that's not enough. That's not sustainable, right?
No.
Because life's ironically a marathon.
Yeah.
It's a really slow race.
Yeah.
And when we talk about this word that's in society everywhere, mental health, what does that actually mean to you? What does that phrase mean? Because I feel like we just talk about it like we all know what we mean. What does mental health mean to you?
I'm a very bubbly and cheerful person, but this year, recently, I've been experiencing social anxiety, and that's completely different to what I think is a normal anxiety or panic attack. And I think for me, I don't have the tools, let alone the qualifications to give you the definition of a mental health concept. But what I know myself is mental health, it's still, it's not a linear journey. It's going to be a lot of ups and downs, which is obviously, well, it is obvious to me that it's common, but for those who haven't experienced mental health, it is really tough. I'm not going to lie, it's tough, and till this day, it's still tough trying to put in the work to ensure that not only do I not break, generational cycles, but also to prevent any mental health traumas that I pass along to my kids, my grandchildren, and that's a lot of work. And it's tiring. I'm tired, but I know I have to ensure that I make that effort so that I can be happy and my children can be happy and my grandchildren can be happy. And I don't think people realize how much work that takes.
Yeah, that's a beautiful definition of mental health because it really, when I think about it, even though I'm here on a suicide prevention podcast, which suicide has contributing factors from negative mental health.
Yeah.
But it's still very tricky to talk about because there's so many contributing factors. And some of the story I've heard from you is anxiety, which leads into depression. And is this from a young age?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say at a young age. I started experiencing anxiety and depression. They go hand in hand. So usually when you have depression, anxiety, it usually escalates the depression. So they're usually fighting against each other. So I was diagnosed in 2018 with severe depression and anxiety. I wouldn't say it's severe still, but it still lingers. I'm still medicated on antidepressants, but I'm still trying to wean myself off it. It's been a tricky journey, very tricky. So I've been on it for 5 years now. And so that all came into place because I was in a very violent relationship. I experienced domestic violence. I went through emotional. It was just very abusive, very toxic. And that shouldn't have been the case at a young age, but I wasn't knowledgeable of what a concept of love looked like, especially when you share it amongst, between your partner. So what I was experiencing, I thought that was very normal, but it isn't. And I've learned that now. But one thing that I found when I actually opened up about it to my close peers was they asked me, why did you stay in it? And I was kind of frustrated. I was just like, well, if I wanted to leave, I would have left, but it's not that easy. But I think it's very common when domestic violence is prevalent in not only just within society, but within Pasifika Māori community. They always ask the women, why did you stay? But why isn't the question to the abuser, well, why did you hit her? Why are you abusive? Why aren't we turning to the abuser and asking them the questions? Why do we have to turn to the victim or the survivor of the relationship, of the toxic relationship? I feel like it goes both ways, It's not as easy as it seems to come out of that relationship, and I'm so glad that I am now. And also I'm so I'm so glad and proud for myself that I can finally talk about it, because I've always like been ashamed and embarrassed because I don't want people to think that I was weak. And I know I'm not weak because I made it my mission to ensure that all those years I spent in my abusive relationship, I put the same amount of effort into therapy, into ensuring that I get myself to such a good, healthy place that I'll never, ever let anyone disrespect me like that, let alone I disrespect myself like that ever again. And I think domestic violence in general needs to be talked about just as much as mental health because they fall underneath the same umbrella. And it's so prevalent within any age group. And I think that if we start talking about it, then maybe people like me who felt ashamed won't have to feel ashamed anymore. And yeah, that's how my whole mental health journey started.
Symmy, thank you for opening up for us like that. And there's people watching now who it will be empowering them. If you were watching you, like others are watching you now on this podcast, what information would you have liked to know and that would have been useful as a tool? Because we're talking about being in these situations that we don't choose to be in,
Yeah.
and not having tools to help us.
Honestly, I would have just, I think there is resources out there, obviously, but just something around just not feeling embarrassed or ashamed or just not feeling scared to talk about it. It's so hard to talk about it, like, let alone, I couldn't even tell my parents, you know. It took me 4 years to tell them. And that's 4 years too long of struggling. And when I told my parents, man, they just broke down. And to this day, I know my mom, she blames herself because she's like, in her head, she's like, you're my child, I could have protected you and all that stuff. I don't know what would have changed, but I do know that for me, just maybe just reaching out, because I'm lucky enough to have people to help me, but I was just terrified. And but I did, and I'm here now, and that's all that matters.
What are you doing with your emotions at that time? Hiding them?
Yeah.
Masking?
Yeah, I would, the bruises I would cover up with makeup, and I would just wear baggy clothes sometimes. It was just all hidden. It was a whole mask, and it wasn't just physically, but emotionally, mentally. I know that I wasn't a perfect person in the relationship, but I do know, like, I turned into this really horrible, ugly person that I didn't like. And I wouldn't say I wasn't horrible to my friends or my family like that. I was like horrible to myself. And it was really a scary, traumatic thing to experience because I just kept blaming myself and kept saying like, oh, if I didn't do this, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten, abused. Or it was just like such a huge battle with me and my demons. And it was horrible. Honestly, it was like the longest 4 years of my life.
I think that's getting to that definition of mental health.
Yeah.
It's what you're talking about. It's that battling, because what it feels like is that when you can't talk about it, it only sits inside you.
Yeah.
And it grows.
Yeah.
And you end up just having these endless conversations. Is that like what it was like for you?
Yeah, it was just like every day it was just like trying not to give up. And it was the most tiring battle I've ever experienced. Like, it was to the fact that, like, I think some moments I would cry to my mum and my dad. I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And they knew what that meant. And they were like, my sister and my mom were like, they told me after I came out of that very dark place, they were like, we didn't care that you didn't want to do this because we were going to go to battle for you, whether you liked it or not. And I think just hearing that was very reassuring, knowing that even though I wanted to give up, my parents, especially my mom and my sister, they were like, Absolutely not. You have no choice. You're gonna stay here and you're gonna fight it with us unintentionally, because I didn't care about the effects of my mental health, because I was a very destructive person. I was very, very what I put my sister, my mum, and my dad through was horrible. I wouldn't want anyone to go through that. I was super destructive. They'd sometimes have to leave work because they'll get emergency calls saying that, Symone is really, really needs your help now. Like, you need to leave work. So it was like to that point where they're just always on edge because they didn't know what I was capable of. And I didn't know that, like, the stuff that I was doing, I was capable of as well. Like, I would tear down my room. I would refuse to eat. It was just all because I just didn't like myself because of the situation that I was in. And that was horrible. I was only like 18, 19. And to go through that for 4 years, like, no one should go through that. Those years are so prevalent, and learning about who you are, having fun with your friends, your family. And here I was, like, having like demons I was battling with in my room, let alone, in a toxic, abusive relationship. Like, that's too much.
And Symmy, I think I might have got this wrong. This isn't a story about a young girl counting her to improve getting faster on the track. This is a happy person that didn't choose to be in a domestic violent relationship. Well,
because like I said before, there's always a lot of shame and embarrassment that you carry. Well, I carried being I don't like to say victim. I like to say survivor of domestic violence, because if I say victim, I feel like I give power to my abuser, and I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor, and what he put me through was horrible, but it did shape me to the person I am today, because I am here standing, talking to you, hoping that I reach out to any other people who went through similar situations, which I hope they didn't, but if they can relate to any part of my mental health journey and, take my tips or advice, that means a lot to me. But yeah, man, honestly, I was like going through all of this while trying to build my career as a journalist and do track and field. And it was like, am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
It was fucked up, man. Like, honestly, it was so fucked. And I was still like pouncing around, trying to put my smile on my face. And then I'd go home and just like.
What damage does pretending you're okay do? Because I feel like that's not talked about a lot.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a big loss of identity. I forgot who I was. Like, even my parents were like trying to remind me of who I was, but like, that girl was gone and she was never going to come back. And that's something that my therapist ensured in me. He was like, even though you've lost the old Symmy, that's fine, because this new Symmy, she's going to be stronger, she's going to be more courageous, she's going to stand up for herself. And that was so important for me to hear, and so important for my parents to hear as well, because if I still was old Symmy, then I wouldn't have gotten out of that situation. And that was really hard. Having an identity crisis at such a young age, it's very I was very lost and confused, because here I was acting like something that I wasn't. And it was like a false facade, or I don't know. I just felt like I had like all these personalities that I was trialing out to see which fit for me. But I feel like right now I'm like comfortable with who I am, but it's still like a long way. And I feel like it's still going to be a long way to still figure myself out.
Yeah, and can you recall, first of all, that moment where you told somebody, and secondly, what courage did you have? Yeah, can you take us back there a little bit, just for someone watching?
Yeah.
Maybe they've tried. Did you try 3 or 4 times to tell somebody and then retreated back in?
Yeah, well, I think it's very common for this generation, because I'm in the Gen Z generation. Dark humor is such a big thing for us, so like we joke about it, and then it's just to like hide like the pain and the fear of what we're actually going through. So I remember I broke the news that I was going through domestic violence with my best friend, and she was just like, bro, that's not okay. And I was just like laughing. I was just like, yeah, I know. But she's like, yeah, you know, so you know, but are you doing anything about it? And I was just like, no, like, I don't know what to do. Like, how am I supposed to tell someone, like, I used to get beaten up by my ex-partner. Like, how do you even bring that up with someone? And that's how I broke my that out with my best friend. And then it wasn't until my parents sat me down, because I had thankfully exited the relationship. And they sat me down. They're like, just tell us everything that happened. And when I told them, they were just like so shocked. And they were like, how did you hide that? And I'm just like, I'm good at hiding things, I guess. I didn't want them to worry, because I already put them through so much traumatizing things. So like that was just like the cherry on top if I told them about the, you know, domestic violence, because I didn't want to worry them. I think that's very common for young ones, you know. They don't want to stress out their parents. We're a little shits enough. Like, I was such a little shit, and I just didn't want to do that to them anymore. But I think in hindsight that damaged our relationship, because that was trust. And in their head, they thought that I could trust them and vice versa to come to them for anything. And for me to not come to them about such a huge reason why I'm going through this mental health journey, they're like, what else are you hiding from us, kind of thing.
Do you think, is that still like that?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's good.
No, because they understood that I was in fear. I think they were just trying to figure out how to, you know, move forward with me to ensure that like I could start healing from that.
You said at the start, mental health is complicated.
It is.
And that's not included. That's if everyone understands the traumatic experiences we've all gone through.
Yeah, and I feel like when one situation happens, then like it's just a trickle down effect. Then other things starts triggering other life things, and it's just you know, it's like deteriorating.
Is there a line though when you do say something?
Oh, I do now. I mean, I'm still not good at communicating when I am struggling. Like, I shut down a lot and I won't communicate. Like, sometimes I'll just go into my room and just like, I just have to recharge. And my mom's like, why didn't you say hi to me? And I'm just like, oh, I forgot. I'm sad today. But the line was definitely, when I told my parents after I had that meeting with them, that line was just very like, I would say it was a boundary for me. From that day onward, I was like, right, I'm going to start putting in the work. I'm tired of the shit. I'm tired of crying. I'm tired of being sad. I'm tired of having all these bloody panic attacks. I'm going to put in the work, because not only does my parents deserve to have, you know, Symmy, their daughter, not the old Symmy, but just Symmy, their daughter, back, but also I deserve it for myself to heal and be the best person I can be, not only for myself, but also for my next future partner that comes along.
What has healing looked like since you said something? How did you get out of that relationship? Because that's something that people will, I'm going to call them tools, you know, but I understand it's very singular to your story, but if we could talk about that a little bit, because I'm trying to give people optimism that they don't have to carry it all around inside.
Just to make it clear, there is hope. I feel like I feel like I can be a good example of knowing that there is hope. The tools that I used was reached out to my parents. Well, it was just like kind of like a 50-50. They saw that I wasn't doing well, so they sat me down. They gave me the room and the space of feeling comfortable enough to start speaking, which I think is very important when it comes to communicating with your kids, no matter what age. If the parents, if they sense that there's something going wrong with their child, then really, really trust that gut instinct, because parents know best, and just got to keep asking and asking, and they will eventually come and start talking about it. And that's something that my mom, she's really good at doing. She's like, always like, you're acting weird, what's wrong? And then sometimes I refuse, but she'll just keep coming around. And you might see that as nagging, But that's just your parents caring, you know? I mean, imagine if your parents did not do that. That means they don't care. And their parents are just doing their job. They just want to know if you're doing all goods or not, you know? And I think that's something simple we kind of brush under the rug. I know I did. But every time my parents ask me how am I doing, I'm like, oh, that's really nice of you to ask. So that happened. In return, my parents helped me find a therapist that I felt comfortable enough to talk about, you know, my domestic violence and just everything that had grown with that situation in terms of my mental health and trauma, etc. And you have to do your research in terms of finding that person you feel that you can connect with. And I went through a lot of counselors, therapists, and you're always going to go through that, but you just have to be patient, knowing that once you find that connection, it's so worth it. Because you might not find it with the first person, let alone the fifth person, but I want to make it clear, it's your responsibility at the end of the day to help yourself, because no one else is going to help you. You have to help yourself so that you can make those changes to better yourself, to become a better person, but also to become a better person for your peers, your friends, your family. Like, why wouldn't you want to be a better person? And it's still a continuation of growing and healing, and it's still going to be a long journey. But if you're willing to put in that effort, it is so worth it. Because I can tell you now, who I was in 2018 to who I am now, I wouldn't have dreamed that I would come to this like point of life, but I'm so happy I put in the effort because I wouldn't have got my degree, wouldn't have got my dream job as a journalist, wouldn't be, successful as I am in track and field, and I wouldn't be happy. And I'm like so much more happier than I was in 2018. And just, all those accolades aside, happiness is like the prize. That's all you want to be. And I think that's so undermined in communities, let alone in the society. Happiness is such a good feeling. And I think that should be the ultimate goal always, because it is mine.
I just 100% agree. Just returning a bit earlier, I don't know if you were talking about this, but I thought to ask you, when you were at your dark moments, did the word suicide come up in your mind?
Yeah. It was I would say it would be like once or twice a week, and then it just really escalated to every day. Like I'll do a lot of things that would try to achieve that, and it was really bad. That's why I meant in terms of like putting my parents through a lot of traumatic things. That was one of the big things. Like they had to take away my car keys, they had to hide away all the knives. They had to leave my door open. I was on suicide watch. I was basically force fed because I refused to eat. So yeah, I did go through a lot of suicidal thoughts for a long time, and it comes when it's such a when you think about it for so long, it becomes normal, and that's not okay.
It's not okay. And
I just want to make that clear. That's not okay to think like that. So because of that, like I said, I was on suicide watch, and like for me, I didn't care. I didn't care the consequences of how it would affect my parents. I didn't care how it would affect me. I just was tired. I was tired of battling my demons. I was tired of being in that really abusive relationship. I just wanted out. Yeah.
And the horrible bit, and apologies for asking you to kind of go here and there with me, but you're having suicidal thoughts, but that's still easier than telling everyone you're in a domestic violence relationship.
Yeah, it was.
Because fear is overriding everything.
Yeah. And it was fear that was embedded in me from my abuser that made me feel not confident enough to confide in my parents. And because of that, it was easier for me to just suffer in silence than to be open about it. And that was horrible. And that was so ugly. I can't believe that I let someone stripped me down to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. At the age of 18 and 19, really? And I feel like that's not talked about enough. Like being in relationships that are that abusive, we don't cover about how it affects your mental well-being, especially when you come out of it. Because when you come out of it, you're like, okay, I need to start unpacking all the toxic things I went through, all the habits that I picked up, all the habits I need to unlearn again, and the things that I accepted that I thought was healthy but is not. There's so much unpacking to do and healing, and it is tiring.
And it might be a lifetime.
Yeah, it might be a lifetime, but honestly, for me, I have no choice to do it because I want to do that because I'll be a selfish person if I put that on someone else, whoever, if it's a partner or another companion that comes into my life. I want to be the best version of me as possible, and to do that I have to put in the work because it's my responsibility.
Can you talk about counselling in terms of not the medical stuff? I don't know why there's stigma around counselling. At its basic form, what is it for you? Is it somebody that you can trust, that you can open up to? Counselling?
I think it's someone who doesn't know me that I don't feel embarrassed to talk about or feel judged. I think judgment or just feeling judged is what I feared a lot to open up about what I was going through. So knowing that A, that person has a qualification really does help, but B, also like they have the tools that I need to help me heal. And also I'm not afraid to be like, that doesn't work for me. Can we try something else? And I don't think people are aware of that. They think like when they get like when they're given a tool or they're given a strategy, they have to go with that. No, you're paying for the services or you went to those services and it's your responsibility to tell them that doesn't work for me. Can we try something else? Or if you do try it and you come back and be like, I didn't like that. Do we have something else? And it's also your responsibility to be like, okay, this person didn't work for me. Maybe I should go try something else. It all comes, I know it's hard to like accept, but it is your responsibility. And I want to reiterate that so significantly. Even though you didn't choose to be in that situation, whether it's traumatic or, depressive or anxiety driven, at the end of the day, it's your life and you still have to make the choice to be a better person, and to do that and to ensure that you have to ask for help, whether it is from external resources or just talking to your friend or talking to a person that you trust. Making those small steps will make a significant difference.
Can I ask you just maybe a slightly tough question too around our Pacifica culture?
Yeah.
Do we feel like we will be judged if we come forward with bad news?
And what do you mean by bad news?
Was part of the resistance to talk to your parents about it, your situation, because, they had really high expectations on you, and that I guess I'm trying to say, like, is it, maybe I'll have another go at that.
No, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I just didn't want them to be disappointed in me, because obviously for them, they brought me up to be a strong, courageous kind of girl, and I felt like I wasn't coming to them as that same girl. I was coming to them as someone who was broken, who was hurt, who was in desperate need of help, but didn't know how to ask for it. And that was tough, knowing my reality of it. And I feel like in Pacifica and Māori communities, all we want to do is make our parents proud. And I just felt like in that moment, I was disappointing them, even though it wasn't my choice. I mean, it was my choice to stay in that relationship, but it wasn't my choice to be, abused to that level. I was embarrassed. I was super embarrassed, and I don't know why I was. I think it's just, actually, no, I do know why. It's not talked about enough. So there's obviously there's taboo when it comes to mental health, but it's the taboo with domestic violence is even more significant, And so I was embarrassed and I was ashamed. And It wasn't because of what my parents did for me. It was what I thought the expectation was for their daughter.
And if you had the knowledge you have now, would you have brought it up earlier?
Right now, being the person I am, 100%.
Would that be something you could offer as a tool to somebody to say the faster you say something?
I wouldn't say it would be a tool. I think it would be advice. I feel like I don't feel comfortable enough to give them that type of tool because I'm still trying to navigate my way through domestic violence, and I've still got a long way to educate myself. But I do know, like, one tip for me is, like, even just telling your best friend or someone close, then they can recognize those signs or, you know, give you some type of tips. Like how I said I told my best friend, and even though I was joking about it when she was like, bro, that's not okay. And that started, like, you know, opening up my, like, started opening up my eyes and be like, oh, I knew it wasn't okay, but maybe hearing it from my best friend and her, you know, confirming that started, like, turning the wheels and being like, okay, I was right. This is not okay. It was last year where I let my parents know about me being in a violent relationship, and then I started going to intense therapy because what I was doing was I was unpacking a lot of traumatic situations that I had been going through within those 4 years, and it was bleeding into my trainings and my everyday life. And because it was bleeding into the things that I love and enjoyed and had passion about, I knew I was just like, that's not fair on me. I worked my ass off to be where I am in track and field and where I am in journalism, so I'm not going to let my abuser win and take away those things away from me, because he's already taken away a lot. So that is key in realizing those things and putting those boundaries when it comes to the things I love and have passion for. Like, you're not going to touch that shit. So I was very firm with that. And because I was very firm with that, I made sure that I actually concentrated in therapy. Because when I used to go to therapy, I was just like, yeah, I come in here because my parents told me to come here. So I was just like, blah, blah, blah. He'll give me strategies. But then when it started affecting the things that I actually put my fucking ass into, I was just like, okay, hold up. I'm not going to let this shit slide anymore. So what I did was I'd be like, I'll tell my therapist very openly, be like, look, whatever you're doing didn't work with me, so we need to change it up. So he was just like, okay, cool. Thank you for telling me, because then otherwise you're wasting my time. You know, just time was wasted. And I felt like I didn't have a lot of time, because I had, like, nationals coming up. I had, like, important games I had to report in. So, even though you can't rush the healing journey, I felt that I can still make small steps to ensure that I could keep my shit together when it came to those competitions, reporting on big games. And those steps would be like journaling. Journaling was a big thing that I felt really, really helped me. And journaling doesn't have to be like writing a fucking story. I could journal from 10 to 20 minutes because that's my attention span. I have an attention span of a fucking goldfish. So I'll journal for 10 to 20 minutes, and then my therapist would be like, and once you've left all your thoughts and feelings, rip it up and throw it away in the bin, because that is your thoughts and feelings done for that day or for that moment, and you don't want to go back on it. And when you it's like when you're getting rid of your feelings, you're actually detoxing all the situations and the traumas that you've gone through. And, like, it was so liberating. I just felt like felt all, like, these layers coming off my shoulders. You know, like I would have violent flashbacks of what would happen to me or occurred in my relationship, and you'd be like, as soon as you get those flashbacks, wherever you are, you just tell them, hey, just give me 10 to 20 minutes, and you write something down, because at that point he told me that you have to confront that situation or that flashback front on, because if you don't, then it's going to come back around 10 times worse. So I'll do that, write it in my journal, and then I'll throw it away in the bin. And you'd be like, you just tell them, fuck you, like, we're not doing this today. And that's one tool that really, really, really helped me, and I still use to this day, because, like I said, I don't like talking, let alone, I'm not very a verbal communicator. I do a lot of this, but when it comes to talking about me, or just like feelings and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm like cringe, bro. I don't want to talk about that shit. Like, even though I do a lot of yap, when it actually comes down to like the nitty gritty in terms of like talking about like serious mental health, I'm like, gross, bro. Like, I don't mind someone else talking to me about their journey, but for me, my journal is that person for me. And highly recommend if you are like me and don't like to talk about shit. So that's a tool I still use, and I still use to this day because, like I said, my abuser, let alone that situation, is not going to win over me and take away the shit that I love like it did before.
And advice for parents who are watching this podcast today, trying to, I mean, you talked about your mum constantly, well, kids would call it nagging.
Yeah.
But did you feel like she was loving you in those moments by checking in?
Now I do. Back then I was like, that's fucking annoying, bro. Like, leave me alone. For parents, I think it's just having the presence, like even if it's not just communicating, just knowing that their presence was around there actually did calm me a lot. Like, I did sometimes make it vocal to my parents and be like, you're in my space. Can you just like, I was like, I felt like I was drowning because they were only doing that because they're very fearful of what I was going to do. But having their presence around me, I was just like, okay, A, they're not going to let me do anything stupid, but B, knowing that if I did need help, they were there. And I think that's super important for parents, is just, it's going to take time, be patient, but just also be there when it's needed. Research is boring. I mean, we talked about this. So word of mouth, well, just like actually just talking to my peers, I was just like, do you know anyone that you think that would best suit me? So I went through my mental health performance coach. His name is David Neath. He works with a lot of sports peers, and I was just like, look, I've tried every Tom, Dick and Harry in the bloody book. Do you know of someone that you think will best suit me? And he actually recommended me this person, and this person works with the Blues rugby team, the Chiefs rugby team. And for me, I was just like, okay, if he works with a lot of sports groups, maybe I can connect to him on that level. But it was just a bit of asking around, and that was my research, because I like gave up on just like Googling. Google can only take you so far, but I was just like, fuck this, bro. So I just asked my sports psych. And I know those resources are not available to everyone else, but I feel like just asking around, especially if you know your peers are going through their own mental journey and who are seeing counsellors, just ask around.
And that must be part of the forward movement, the healing too, is being proactive to ask. Yeah,
proactive is such a good key word. And also, like, it comes back to what I'm saying, like, it's your responsibility to be in charge of your healing journey. And that is harsh, but that is just the reality of it, because no one is going to do the work except for you. And you got to realize that.
What's on the horizon for you? We've talked about a period of your life where it will probably be a lifelong journey of healing.
It is.
Triggers all over the place. And I want to know what you're excited about going forward, because you showing everyone today that that's not going to define you.
My therapist always told me, he's like, you know what evil looks like, so you know how to not let that, characteristic of evilness into your life. So that's one big thing that I've learned. He's like, even though you came from a shitty situation, unless you've learned, certain aspects of who you are as a person, it's shaped you, obviously. And third of all, if you ever see anyone that has any traits of that, you're like, absolutely not. Get the fuck away from me. And I think that's super important, knowing that every situation you can take positives out of it, even though no matter how traumatic or shitty it is, you can always find, like I said, positives out of it. And for me, what I'm excited about is still continuing to unpack and heal, be a better person, be a better Symmy, because I owe it to myself. I've only been on this unpacking / healing journey from coming out of my relationship for now 2 years. So if this is me 2 years, imagine me in 12 years, 20 years. I've been achieving a lot of things within these 2 years that I didn't think I was capable of. I went over to New York and Oregon for New Balance to report for them. Like, bro, if I kicked the bucket, I wouldn't have been able to go to New York or any of this shit. Like, yeah, so really excited to keep growing as a journalist, see where track and field takes me. But the ultimate thing that I'm super excited about is being happy. Because being happy is also not a linear journey. There's a lot of up and downs. Like, I was literally depressed last week, but like, you know, I just sat through my emotions, did my journaling. But being happy has always been my ultimate goal, whether it's for my family and friends, but mostly being happy with myself and who I am as a person.
I love that so much. I just realized I did all this research and we didn't talk about anything in it, but I think it's beautiful because this is the mask we talk about, the accolades, the achievements.
Yeah.
And today you shared the evil that we can now look for in our own lives.
Yeah.
And we know from your story you have to find a way to say something because then you can make your next steps. And I'm not trying to boil it down to a couple sentences, but, you know, I really wanted this podcast to be something that can inspire people to look within themselves for that strength. And I hope they'll find that strength within your story. So I want to say thank you.
No worries. And I just want to make it clear, like, even though I've had a lot of blessings and achievements within these 2 years, I just want to make it clear, like, those things are very temporary because at the end of the day, you sort of come back home and deal with yourself and your traumas and your, you know, those very hurtful and dark moments. And those are the moments where you find as a person where happiness will be your ultimate goal. And I just want to make that clear, like, no matter how minor or major your goals are, when you achieve them, they're still temporary. Happiness is still a long-term goal that everyone should strive for. Yeah, so that smile came about with my actual sports mental health coach. His name's David Neath, like I mentioned before. He said that I have a great smile. Right, it sounds so cocky. He said I have a great smile. But he said that I should use my smile as my superpower because I smile a lot. I don't know why. I just be smiling for no reason sometimes. But he said, so he said that when I line up, whether it's a race or, you know, going to report or just something that I know might create a bit of anxiety, he said to, you know, write down smile on my hand, and then that's smiling actually relaxes the whole system, my whole body. Then it clears the fog, and then I'm able to think clearly. And funny enough, when I started doing that and implementing that through competitions, I started doing that before, you know, I went in front of the camera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started seeing my friends, like rugby players, doing it, and I just hit them up like, are you copying me? No, it's all good. But I remember one of my rugby friends, he was just like, I saw what the smile did to you and what you achieved not only on and off the track, and I was like, maybe I'll try to do that. And to this day, he still does it, which is amazing, which is awesome. Yeah.
I nearly didn't want to ask about the smile because I thought it might tie into the mask, because probably there's a smile aspect of going out into the world and projecting everything's okay when it's not.
Yeah.
And it's a really fine line is what I was thinking.
Oh, no, yeah, I get what you mean. But sometimes, you know, you got to fake it till you make it just to get through the day. And that's something I did, but now I don't have to fake it anymore. I think my face says it before I do. Yeah. Like if I'm having a shitty day, I'm pretty open about it. And I just, you know.
Maybe the takeaway is smile if you're happy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you. If you think you or someone you know may be at immediate risk, call 111 or connect to the following services to get help. Text the Need to Talk Helpline on 1737. Call the Depression Helpline on 0800 111 757 or text 4202. If you would like more information on suicide prevention training and education, visit LEVAR on www.leva.co.nz. More support numbers are available in the show's description.